Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the local community in South Australia, the football community, where I chat to players, coaches, officials, and this week I'm chatting to a president of a football club in the NPL, and I'm right here live from Frank Mitchell Park, joined by the president of FK Beograd in the NPL in SA, Andrew Popovich. Thank you so much for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Johnny Kecko.
It's a pleasure to be at your location. I'm starting to record on location. It's good to get a feel for the club. And what the club has here set up is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the club's been here for the club's been in existence for 73 years, and I think at this ground we've been here for almost 63 years. So, well entrenched in the Woodville West suburb here. It's Frank Mitchell Park.
It's a beautiful facility, and you're the president of the club. So I want to talk about what it's like to be a president, because it's almost a full-time role, isn't it?
It starts off being a full-time role. As you start, I've obviously been here almost 15 years at the helm here at White City, or now known as FK Beograd. You need good people around you, but you need really solid people who put their head down and get on with the job. So it's quite difficult. There's a lot of volunteer hours, and your phone's on pretty much 24 hours, 24/7, addressing issues from small to large. Yeah.
What are some of the issues you have to deal with on a daily basis?
Players there's a lot. So it's broken into a couple of components. You've got admin, so you've got federation stuff, registrations, tribunals, issues with players, contracts, referees, all that sort of stuff. It just culminates into football. You've got the logistical side of things in regards to pretty much just setting up foods, caterings, making it as the hospitality as good as it can be at the club, and sponsorship, fundraising, and you've got things to do with government, local government, councils, federal governments. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of bouncing balls in local sport, particularly football. Yeah,
it sounds like a full-on role, because a lot of people I know, they all have a full-time job on the outside, and trying to juggle it must be a tricky thing.
Well, it's a very tricky thing, and the problem is when you love football so much, you end up making sacrifices, probably to the detriment of your own sort of business and family, because you spend a lot of time here. So, someone has to be here at 4:30 to meet our local government official. You pretty much finish work and you get here to address the issue. So, big sacrifices, but when you love football, there's ups and downs. So it's important. I think it's important to dedicate time to a community, and particularly a sport that you love. It doesn't happen very often these days, because there's a lot of people that really struggled for time. Yep. I always say to people, as a president, I said, I've got 3 daughters, work for myself. So if I can make time, I still believe anyone can make time. So if you love it enough, there's always time.
Talking about the love, what does this club actually mean to you? Because you've been here for 15 years as the club president. What does it mean to you to be a part of this club?
Look, it's a two-part theory to this. So the first part is obviously you grow up at a club, you love football. So as a kid, I used to come here and watch. As a 7-year-old, I started watching pretty much every Saturday. So local soccer is where it's at. Things have changed in the last, say 10 or so, 15 years. Soccer's changed a lot, I think. Probably a lot of people argue for the better. I actually think that we're losing a little bit of the smell or the sniff of when you go to a football club these days. Things have changed. The other thing probably is obviously being born here of Serbian background. Mum and Dad came to Australia. Mum came when she was 11. Dad came when he was about 25. When you're born in a different country, obviously of Serbian descent, you try to cling on to anything you can that relates to your past, your history, and your DNA. So this club was that for me. So you got to spend a lot of time with people of your own background. And it allowed us to build sort of our culture and display our culture to the other nations of nationalities of Australia. So Yeah, so it's a two-part series. One's football and two's the community orientated. You get involved and you just want to be a part of it and you want to make a difference.
I want to talk about the community a little bit later and the cultural aspect of this club, because that's one thing that makes football stand out to all the other sports, is that cultural aspect of it. And I love that part of it. And I'm looking forward to talking about the food you guys do here as well. But before we get to that, you weren't always in playing soccer because your dad never allowed you to play football at the age of 17. What was the reason behind that?
Well, I'm not sure. So I still haven't worked this out. I spoke to my dad passed away obviously a few years ago. He was hell-bent on me finishing school, going to uni, and just getting educated. So he always thought soccer was secondary, which in hindsight, when you think about it, it probably is. So probably educating yourself and doing well. And, statistically, the likelihood of becoming a professional soccer player from Australia is very rare. So statistics would say best get a job, get married, have kids, and just be involved. So obviously a bit disappointed. So I was one of those kids that came to every game, wasn't allowed to play, but probably trained more than most kids that actually played. Yeah. So I was always in the backyard, juggling, doing rollovers, Cruyff turns, taking shots in between the fig tree and the peach tree. So it's a funny story, actually, because when I was in year 12, I actually got picked to go to the state schoolboys trials for public schools.
Yep.
And that's back then we played against Jimmy Chiquinas, Corey Artoni. They were at Norwood High. We were at Croydon High. And my father didn't let me go to the trials because of I had to study for exams, even though exams were like 8 weeks away for year 12. So it was taskmaster, very military orientated with his thought process. But so obviously I started playing late, started pretty much at 17, 18. Came to White City, played 18s, played a bit of resis. That was in 1993 when White City won the championship. So we had players like Bradley Hassel, Bradley Armour, Johan Dacic, Dennis Martinello in goal. So we had a really, really good side, and we won the championship that year. So I was approached by Ivan Zafran, who played at this club. He was actually a Croatian descent, and he said to us, "Come to Cobras. We're in the second division. Have a crack. You've got talent. You're not going to get a shot here. Come there." So played resis there. Got BOG first 2 games, and then called up into the first team with Zafran. He was really keen on me playing, and that season got pretty much after around like 3 or 4 got glandular fever. So pretty much out for the whole year with glandular fever. As an 18-year-old, you're always going out, sort of working, not sleeping, and you put yourself in all these situations. So. They eventually came back, played amateurs for a long time with the Serbian team affiliated with the club, and then came back to White City at 25, just before I got married. So I came back, played in the resis, trained, had unfortunately a car accident at work, got rear-ended at the traffic lights, struggled to train, and then I became a coach. I replaced Rod Del Nido. That was a state development coach in the reserves, and then just ended up coaching. And so from coaching there, I ended up coaching under 12s, the kids here at the club. They had no coach, and they just started from there.
And you've just been involved ever since?
Pretty much 20 years. This is 20 years involvement actually in direct coaching and volunteering. So, I'm the president the last 15 years, but I still call that a volunteer. So at the end of the day, everyone's doing their bit to keep the club running as well as possible.
And it's great that you've been here. So what's one of I know the community part of it is one of your favourite bits, and also the football side, but is there any other reasons for you to last that long being in the club and being involved in the same club for just as a volunteer?
Look, last year I wanted to step down as president, not to walk away from the club, but just pretty much just take a minor role and just focus on one task. As a president, you have about 15 tasks, ranging from what sock you're going to choose, what colour, to, what sort of menu you have, and, dealing with government. So there's there's a lot of work that's not seen by supporters and public that is done during work hours and after hours. So I thought, I've got 3 daughters. The third daughter was born. I thought, I'll just take a break. It gets a little bit too much and spend some time with the kids. In that meantime, my 2 eldest daughters, we set up girls soccer here and they started playing, and, they come every week as a tradition. So my wife pretty much said to me, you weren't there in the beginning you're always at soccer, and now
Yep.
you want to stop as you're getting older, and then the kids are going, you should just hang out. So still president, but
Yep.
we're hoping to find a replacement, at the end of this year, to take control. I mean, I'll still hover around and help out, but I was always keen on setting up the Frank Mitchell Foundation, which was to raise money for the club and just focus on specific tasks. If we needed to do a small pitch, like a five-a-side pitch, we'd raise money and then just keep adding value to the club, where you just focused on a single task, and that's when you're probably at your best. You can actually focus on a single task and do really well at it. So we'll see. So we're trying. We'll see how we go. We're in the NPL this year, so I thought I'd stay one more year, consolidate. Hopefully, we obviously don't get relegated, stay up, and maybe even make the finals if possible. And that'll be a reward. And then we'll just move on. We'll work it out as the season goes on.
Well, that brings me to my next part of the conversation, talking about the club a bit in depth. And with last year, you were in State League 1 in 2021, and it was a year that you guys got promoted. It's a long while that you guys hadn't been in the NPL for. What was it like around the club? Because I did see on social media the celebrations from some of the players after that game that you finally got your final place, because it made it hard for yourself after the final round in season 2021. You were on top most of the season, and then unfortunately one game just changed that, and you had to play off to get that final spot. What was the celebrations like once you finally confirmed that you were back in the top flight where you guys believe you belonged?
Look, White City's Belgrade's a traditional club. It's one of the big sort of 5 or 6 clubs with Adelaide City, West Adelaide. The Campbelltowns, the Raiders, and the Blue Eagles. So the traditional clubs. We always felt that we should be in the NPL. I believe we're an NPL club. We went through some structural changes as a club. We're in the western suburbs, and it's like we purposely sort of lost a little bit of focus, and we focused on infrastructure and building the club up for the long term. So that hence a new club rooms. We've got new grounds at Fulham for the juniors. So we sort of focused on that. And then we realised ourselves, this is just not us. We've been here 5-6 years. It's time that we go search for a coach that can take us to the next level, lift the standards up. So hence we went for Damien Mori. We somehow reached out, and then it was quite funny. I think Damien was made aware that we were looking for a coach, because we had Cassio appointed as a coach because we wanted to play really good football. He was coaching the juniors. And we always knew that he wasn't going to be a long-term Cassio, because his son was always going to be around the mark as a player, and he was obviously pushing for the A-League players in the Australian under-17 side. So we pretty much appointed him, and 2 or 3 months later, Bernardo was asked to go to Melbourne City. So they packed up and left. So we already had Cassio. We had a big name person. Wasn't a big name coach because he never coached seniors, but obviously when you're at that level, it's not that hard to adapt. So we reached out to Maury. Somehow Maury reached out to us. We had a conversation, and one thing led to another. He recruited a squad that was pretty much inherited. So he turned the squad around. We turned over a lot of players up to the halfway mark. Recruited a few other players. Made a late charge. Won all our finals games and lost in the final to Sturt the year before. I think he was really eager for us to get promoted, because as an experienced player, he's done so much as a player, coach. He's coached Adelaide City to championships and minor premierships, and I think he really wanted to prove to everyone that he'll get White City, the big club, back in the league, and he did. So we got a mixture of older players and younger players last year. And like you said, we got pipped at the post. We pretty much topped the whole year, and we drew in the end. And Burkalla scored in the injury time, and they beat us in the minor premiership. But we always thought we had the team and to get promoted. And luckily, in the end, we convincingly, I thought, won the final against Burkalla and made it through. So now it's sort of the job is successfully achieved. What we went out to achieve, and we've sort of done it. And now it's consolidating in the NPL for 2022.
So you're back in the NPL. What's the vibe like now? Because you guys are known to have a nice following of supporters that come out to games. What's it like around the club being back in the top league?
Look, it's
has it changed a bit, or
it's changed a little bit. It's not so much. What it has changed is you're playing against some of those traditional clubs again, like the Campbelltowns. The Adelaide Cities, and you sort of rekindle a little bit of that rivalry, because you feel like you're back where you belong. The supporters have always followed us regardless, so wherever we were. To be honest, sometimes And I think Raiders are going through that now. They're in State League 1. Sometimes it's good to get a bit of a reality check to sort of rejig yourself. It takes a while to get out of that league. I think Raiders the year before, a few years back, they came back straight back up. We took 6 years to get back up. So it's not easy in that league. It's a different type of football, and recruiting players is an issue because really you're in the mix of getting experienced players who love playing for money, and really the club is at the club's pretty much at their feet there because you're desperate to get promoted, so you end up throwing a little bit extra money than you'd prefer just to try and get the job done. So. But now the following's good. Our only issue is we're still playing day games, and although day games were traditional, under lights football here at Frame Mitchell Park is the best. The crowd's probably double, the revenue is probably 40-50% more, and that's where we want Friday night games pretty much. And I think it'll lift the level of football. Number of supporters that will come out. They love night football, especially in the earlier months of the season. So.
It's nothing beats getting out to a local park on a nice, cool winter's night. We can smell the food cooking on the barbecue.
Yeah, well, with us, it's a lot of people actually come just to eat and drink. So a lot of people don't even actually watch the game. So, there's some positives and negatives to that. But, it's a positive because people come to the club, they feel comfortable, and it's almost like a day out for them. Have a few drinks, eat some good food. And then they know what the score is in the end. But they hang out with people, and I think COVID's done that for a lot of the soccer clubs. People don't go to the city as much. They hang out and have a few beers at the club. And then they go home because most people live in the West, and it's just a short drive home. And I think it's done wonders for building the community spirit at football clubs.
And the cultural side of it, back in 1949 when the club was founded. It was founded by a Serbian community. Do you think that Serbian community is still heavily a part of this club?
I think it is. So we're probably the only club in South Australia, maybe even in Australia. I think there might have been a couple of clubs. We actually changed our name back once they lifted the embargo on ethnic names in '93. We changed our name to White City FC, and now we've changed our name back to FK Beograd, which is the traditional name that we had when it was founded. And I think, as a club, we wanted to acknowledge the people that's founded the club. So they came under, unforeseen circumstances. A lot of those people that founded the club were in prison centres all around Italy, Germany, and other parts of Europe after World War II. They came here and they love football. So they created the club. All I'd say is, being born here, the Serbian background of the club is very well prominent in the club, and I think justifiably so. They're the ones that founded it, and it's sort of a symbol of our culture and our people. So we embrace everyone. If you notice, it's probably the most multicultural club there is. I think sometimes we get a little bit of a bad stick thrown at us saying, "Oh, it's very Serbian, it's very Serbian." Well, it's Serbian in colours and Serbian in probably name and culture. But if you actually look at the demographic of the people in our juniors and our seniors, you'll find that it's probably only 5 to 10% Serbian. So we're probably the most multicultural club in South Australia when you look at those statistics. So we've done. I think you find that once you come to the club, and you're obviously of Italian descent, and we have a lot of Italians, Greeks, Hungarians, and there's still Hungarians and Russians and people that still come to the club that supported it in the heyday. And I think what you find that we have unique about our club is our club traditionally is still supported by the same people that supported us 30, 40, 50 years ago, and the next generations come and watch. They're genuine football supporters. There's a lot of other clubs out there that have got huge junior registered players, but they don't have many people watch their the senior team. So I think that's the challenge for those clubs. To make soccer an institution locally and get people out to games, you actually got to have people that are actually buy in to a club and a culture of a club and buy into the game at grassroots. There's too many people that just the mindset's changed. So they're not about the club. They're more about themselves, more about their kids, where their kids are going to play, and it's all about the kids. And I think they need to reverse the mindset They need to teach the kids, and similar to coaches, they need to be taught to play for a club.
Yeah.
And once you establish that and you play for a club, everything else sort of follows. The club is there to give you a platform to go to the next level. So the club is there to allow kids, coaches to take the next level. So without strong clubs, there's lack of opportunity for players and for coaches if they love the game and they want to go to the next level. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm a big critic of a lot of things involved in football, because I've been involved in soccer as a player, coach, been involved in the girls' game, amateurs, masters, the way clubs are run. And I think a lot of work needs to be done. I think as an organisation, the federations and stuff, they've done a very good job in regards to setting up infrastructure for clubs. But I think we really miss the point when it comes to actually building the clubs as institutions to build the game.
Yep.
And you can see that flow through with the A-League. It's our top league. There's not that many supporters that go and watch. Even though the game is okay, the product is still quite good. There's a lot of young players. The product is okay. Nothing like Europe, obviously, and we shouldn't compare ourselves to Europe, because at the end of the day, football is number one sport in Europe and South America. Here, it's number 5, I would say. So the goal, I think, of administration here is to get football to be basically the number 3 sport. It's never going to be number 1 or number 2 in front of AFL
and
cricket and in the Eastern Seaboard NRL. It's never going to get there. But we need to get it to the stage where people actually come to the games, love it, love the product. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed to get that to happen, I believe.
From your side of things, what do you believe needs to be done to change that mindset and get people back out to games?
Look, I think we need to focus on grassroots. So I'm a big believer. If you look at the olden days, everyone talks about the golden generation, the Vidukas, the Kules. A lot of those players, say Kule's unique, but Kule went obviously when it was 15, 16 overseas. A lot of those kids previously loved football. So it's a different love. So those people played, whoever made it to the AIS, which is a great institution, because they produced a lot of players, because it was that sort of school format that allowed you to focus on football. A lot of those kids at halftime, outside, they'd be going to a park, they'd be having kicks, they'd be shooting at goals, they'd be playing 3-on-3, 5-on-5, even though they were still training and playing. So I believe that they had many more hours of training than the current day players did. And they had a bigger passion for the game. There's a lot of kids now that love playing the game, it's great, and aspire to be at a higher level. But to get to that level, really, you need to be playing football all the time. So you need to be doing it at home. Similar to cricket, when you were younger, it wasn't an ethnic sport, cricket.
No.
But every ethnic that I knew was playing cricket with a bin or a Stobie pole, playing in the backyard or the front yard after dinner, and then when it would get dark, you'd go home. So you had people exposed to the game. And I think that's where football... I think that's why Australia hasn't excelled. I don't believe Australia has excelled in football. I think we're getting there. I think we've dropped off I just believe we've just dropped off the planet. I know people will argue, say, it's not true, but when you have players more... So the mindset of kids now, I believe, is they have to go into the federation program. So we have to play SAP, or we have to play Skillaroos, and if we don't make it to Adelaide United Youth, and then we've failed, and they sort of drop off and they sort of lose that mindset. If you go all around Europe and South America, most of the kids play for their club. So what I say is I think there needs to be a different mindset, and I believe the federations and FFA soccer, they need to focus on clubs and focus on providing extra resources for clubs, for kids to train and get better training at clubs. So if you don't want to be a football player, that's fine. You can train twice a week. If you do want to be a footballer, there should be an opportunity where extra funding is given, because clubs can't, let's be honest, can't afford to pay an A-League credentialed coach to coach under 12s and under 13s, right? Because someone has to have a certain amount of remuneration to justify that sort of, justify their time in coaching. So a big part of that, I think, is they need to rejig the love for the game. So I believe that state teams, federations, and all those organisations, I think they need to provide extra training, but that can't be at the detriment of clubs where those organisations actually play against the clubs that actually feed the federations. So I think I believe there needs to be a big rejigging of the format.
Yep.
Because kids need to grow up playing for a club and having a love for a club because it makes them better people.
Yeah, it does.
And it allows them to actually play for a cause. So it's not done like that in Europe and it's not done like that in South America. So if we aspire to be like those countries and be successful, we need to sort of start following their models for that.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of clubs talking about facilities and having the facilities for the clubs. We've seen a lot of clubs getting funding to be able to build new facilities, like we look at Croydon FC, for example, as well, building a brand new facility there, and also LA Comets getting the funding now to hopefully build a new ground at Ellis Park. Is that a great stepping stone, a great way now for the future for the game? Because we have seen a lot more of these clubs getting the facilities up and running.
I think the more clubs that get funding to improve the facilities, the better it is.
Yeah.
So collectively, I think there should be a system where every club pretty much is allocated funding to improve their facilities so we don't leave anyone behind. And improve all the standards because it's the greatest game in the world and it still feels like we're way behind the eight ball. So the grounds are great. So the infrastructure is getting better at all clubs and that's a perfect base.
Yep.
Now what we need to actually work on is actually getting people to the games.
Yeah.
So you've got to improve the product and you've got to improve the reasoning for people coming to the game. So we try to do the community feel where people come and eat and have a drink and socialise as a means of getting people to the game. And then eventually people start, following the club and doing that. So, for the clubs to be all super sustainable, I mean, if all the clubs got, between 500 to 1,000 people to a game, paying customers, you already see a massive difference in the strength of the clubs. And then the clubs in turn can reinvest that money into better coaching.
Yep.
Better medical facilities, and that to improve players. So I was saying before, to get a really good coach out here, so if the person hasn't got a kid playing at the club, it's very hard to justify someone just spending their time coming to train kids for $500. It's just not going to happen, right? So coaching, the level of coaching then becomes poor because you're actually eliminating the people that are higher profile that can actually add value, and you're sort of getting coaches that will do the job but are probably not at that certain level that you'd want to take the kids to the next level.
Talking about coaches, your current coach is your head coach of FK Beograd in the NPL, and he's also at the same time the assistant coach for Adelaide United. What's it like having that link now between your club and Adelaide United through your coach, Damien Murray?
I think, we're a very flexible club, you see. So, but I think we've always had a decent relationship with Adelaide United because the people that were always involved with Adelaide United through the years, we're always involved in local soccer. So from the Fairmont days, the Bianco days, they spent a lot of money and time with clubs. And I think that was what sort of elevated the Adelaide United status. And there's a lot of past people involved there. The Carl Vierts, coached juniors and, played for Salisbury and, went overseas and played for Australia. That adds, I think, a little bit of it's a good feel to have local people attached to your A-League club to bridge the gap. Because I still think I still believe there's a divide between Adelaide United and the support of traditional soccer supporters and A-League. Because I think there's you could say, these people volunteer their times in winter, and then in summer when they crisscross, sometimes they just got no time. They're time poor to actually go and support Adelaide United. But Damien Murray heading shows you the epitome. Played at a high level, coached. It's a testament to our club who is flexible, and Adelaide United have been flexible for us as well to make that thing happen. So Carl Vier obviously needed assistance. They're past teammates, and that's what clubs should be doing. If you're keen on promoting the game, you should be working together, and no different to any other clubs. I think if we're actually keen on the game, we're all competitive, we all want to win. But for us to get to the next level as a sport, we all got to band together and help each other. And I think the Maury situation with Adelaide United is an example of how clubs can work together.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I love the connection. And I went to a game where it was Adelaide United youth versus FK Beograd. So it was very strange seeing Damien on the sidelines coaching LA United whilst against his current club as well. But it's good to see that connection. It was also nice to see that the local game, because I remember a few years back it wasn't as strong as what it's getting to, what it looks like it's getting to now.
Look, you will see that, and I think just with the NPL, I think as a club, you want the NPL to be, and I'm a traditionalist soccer supporter, so from my perspective, like the NPL where we're in now, FK Beograd needs Adelaide Croatia to be in there because it's traditional rivals. We need West Adelaide Hellas to be in there because that's the traditional rivalry of local football.
Yeah.
And I think once, hopefully that sort of resurrects itself, but that'll slowly change the game and get more people to the game, because the more derbies there are, the better it is for football. So that's where we need to head. And I honestly believe there's a lot of work to do to get football back to where it needs to be. You got to keep in mind, back in the day when in the 70s, 60s and 70s and 80s when people played, you had the traditional Serbian import, Croatian import, Hungarian import, Greek, Italian people, Polish. They all came to play from football environments. And they all played and they coached kids pretty much free of charge because they love the game. It's a big shift. So I still think, and this could be a suggestion, but, there should be in the next 5-6 years, I believe, people who are involved in clubs, maybe they should set up committees as affiliates to the federation to help the federation to actually add input on how they actually think. So sometimes I think you need people that are actually exposed to club environments and have been exposed to the game to actually help and make decisions for football. I think administration, from whatever that is, from politics to sport, administrators are administrators.
Yep.
So sometimes I think they lose sight in what the game actually needs because they don't actually spend that much time at clubs day to day seeing what's actually needed. So from a high end level, sure, they do an okay job. They help out. There's a bit of funding for infrastructure, and that's all good. But to get to the root of the problem, I think you need to spend a lot of time. You need a lot of people banding together to get the game to where it needs to be. And I think it needs to start very, very, very soon, because I think I still believe our sport is in grave danger of becoming irrelevant. That's what I believe locally. Even the A-League, I still think there's a lot of work to do. It's good standard of football. It's good to watch, but people aren't watching. And there has to be a reason for that. Years ago, Western Sydney used to have 25,000, 30,000 people. They built a stadium. Now they've got 2,000 people. Now, something's gone wrong for that to happen. So for those people to turn away, let's not look at the finer details. But at the end of the day, let's get those people back to the game, because they were making the game exciting to watch.
It was, yes.
And I think that's what it's all about, entertainment.
Well, we've seen Melbourne Victory as well. They dropped off for a while, but they've come back in numbers again in the last season or two. So we're slowly seeing it come back. Hopefully it happens for all clubs and even locally as well, so we can see back where it used to be. And I can stop listening to the stories of the heydays of local football and see it again with the community as strong as what it used to be.
Well, look, the talk of the B-League is probably... is what could rejig and reignite, obviously, younger players, give them another stepping stone to get to the A-League. But there has to be a huge investment from the federal government, local state governments to make it happen.
Yep.
So, Vietnam, Thailand, China, they've invested a lot of money in football. And rightfully so, it's the greatest game in the world. And I think if some of the people higher up, who are traditional cricket and rugby league and AFL people, if they can actually take a step back and actually just analyse the biggest businessmen in the world, the biggest manufacturers, the biggest business people in the world, come from China, come from Germany, come from Italy. They're all football countries. China is not a traditional football country, but they invest a lot of money. They're big on ping pong and badminton, all those other sports. But they're investing a lot of money in ping pong, and now they're investing a lot of money in football because they know it's the greatest game in the world. So they want to challenge those people, and that's bragging rights. You've got countries like Japan who are huge on football.
Yep.
So many massive companies how many of them sponsor local football or our national football? They don't, because there's no connection there with people up top, because there's nothing to talk about. When you have a meeting with someone, or you have a beer, you have a drink, you talk about footy.
Yep.
Yeah, locally. Yeah. But when you talk about Europe, talk to Europeans, South Americans, and other Asians, they talk about football, soccer. So that could bridge the gap and create more opportunities. And I think they need to just, they just need to open their eyes. I think at the moment there's too many people with blinkers on. That's my opinion. And for the game to excel, we need to exhaust all avenues. And they just got to open up their eyes and realise there's a reason why every country in the world plays football.
It's a great game, and it connects a lot of people, and that's how I connected through you, with going to a local cafe in Salsa Espresso on Findon Road in the western suburbs, and the community there is great, all different cultures, and we all get together and talk football most of the time.
Well, Jason Spinella does a great job there at Salsa on Findon Road. Just give him a plug. There's 7 to 10, 12 clubs there that are represented, from... particularly from the western suburbs, but you got your Olympics, your Fulhams, your Western Strikers, your Croydons, your Belgrads, and a few other clubs there. That's
even Cobras as well.
Cobras there, and they talk football, and that's what it's all about. And it creates a culture, and it's working in best practice, because a lot of people are telling, sharing best practice, sharing stories of how we do things at our club, and we're getting ideas. And I think it's improving. And I think the relationship between people in clubs, particularly of the western suburbs, is really, really good. So although we are rivals, I mean, we can ring up a president or a person or in a committee from a Western Strikers to a Croydon, and we're all connected. And we're all sharing best practice, because we want everyone to do well. We obviously all want to win, but we all want the game to win. And I think that environment, like you said, is what we need to create all round Adelaide.
I love it. And as a neutral, being there and talking to you guys, it's fantastic. And it's a great little community at Salsa Espresso. So make sure you get down there. Little plug for Jason. But the other thing is, before I let you go as well, I want to talk about the players that have come through your club, played at Adelaide United and gone on to the national stage as well. You've had Nikola Milosnic, and also Robbie Cornthwaite, just to name a couple, and also currently Lockie Barr as well, who played at your club.
Yeah, well, we've got lots of people that came to the club. Young Nick Milosnic, obviously, is a product of White City. I coached him for 3 years here in the under-12, so he's been here a long time. He did go to Adelaide City when we got relegated and got recruited by Adelaide United. Some people will say that Adelaide City produced him, which is totally false. We blooded him when he was 16 years old in the first team. Similarly, we did that with a few other players, like the Ninko Beric, who's playing now. We blooded him at 15. So we try to do that with our younger players, especially the players that have been here for a while. We think it's important. And, sometimes it's the sacrifice of the club. We blooded 5 or 6 youngsters, and we got relegated that year from the NPL because we had too many young players. But if anything, it's did them the world of good. So we're all about people getting to a higher level. Robbie Cornthwaite wasn't really a product of White City, obviously, Belgrade. But he only came here, I think he was here for 3 games, and kicked, I think, 2 goals or 3 goals from right fullback, and got the call up. So, but he I get on very well with him, and he's in the media now, and he ended up playing for Australia, went to South Korea. So I still like to think that we had some sort of influence over that of coming to here. Lockie Barr, who's currently playing now, came here originally and was training in the reserves, came from Whaler and pushed him into the first team, and then obviously left, went to Adelaide United youth, and several players. Chad Bajaya came here from Broken Hill, played resis here, demonstrated a high quality of football, got promoted to our first team, and he came back here and coached kids, and now he's a technical director of juniors at Croydon. So there's a lot of players that have made it from here. Bradley Hassel in the 90s. At one stage, I think we sold 4 players to the old NSL, and I think for a transfer of about 50 grand for 4 players, which is very rare now. Transfers, it's just become, dime a dozen. It doesn't really happen anymore. So that's something they probably need to get back to. Give clubs some sort of incentive for playing player, just reward for taking players.
I think that is something FA is working towards as well. I've seen a plan, and I think they're working towards getting that, which would be great for the local clubs again, wouldn't it?
Look, there needs to be some sort of just reward, because what happens is clubs invest a lot of money and time in coaching and facilities, and you have a player that leaves and the club doesn't get reimbursed pretty much anything. There's some sort of compensation, but it's very, very minimal, and it takes 2 to 3 years for it to actually come through to the system. So, it's gone are the days with Mark Viduka leaves Melbourne Knights, and Melbourne Knights get a commission of $1 million or whatever it was for him to go to Leeds. And I think Vince Grella, I think the Serbian team in Springvale White Eagles in southeast of Melbourne got money for him when he left Carlton and went to Italy. So there's a lot of things that don't happen that used to happen, and clubs used to get a bit of a kickstart. I think I was a young kid, but Todd Clark was the keeper for Australia. He played for the old Beograd. And I think they sold him for, I think it was $15,000 in the late 70s, and you could buy a house for $15,000. And, you put it in the context, that means, you'd be selling players at local level for $600,000-700,000, the average price now. Now, it doesn't happen. And I think it explains a lot, though, local level. Clubs do struggle, and I think for that to happen, we need to get back to the good old days.
Absolutely. And I'm going to finish it all off now. I've enjoyed that chat. But firstly, if someone wants to come to the club and watch the football, what do you recommend them to order at the kiosk?
To be honest, it's a traditional, say, Serbian hamburger or Balkan hamburger, made out of beef and lamb mixed, a bit of onion, bit of capsicum, bit of avar, which is like a capsicum relish. The traditional cabbage, which is very, very good for you. It's very good for your health, cabbage, and a jalapeno roll. So I advise that. It's a bit of a big eat, but I assure you that. And the Beograd Lager that's organised. We've got our own beer that's been organised by Coopers. So plug Coopers as well. But Coopers helps a lot of people. A lot of clubs here in South Australia have helped the Federation. They've sort of definitely looked after us in the last 3 years since we've moved into this venue. So thank Anthony Petherick there at Coopers, the sales manager. But
and so you got your own exclusive Cooper's lager.
Yeah, so it's called the White City Lager, the Beograd Lager. It's probably our most popular drink now, and it's a lager. So Cooper's makes it for us, but to let you in a little secret, it's a Cooper's Lager. So they've done it for us for branding, and it's really worked. The keg sales are really, really good, and a lot of people from other clubs have jumped on it. And obviously Cooper's South Australian owned. It's good beer. So.
That sounds fantastic. I'm going to come down and get a nice feed, watch some football, and have a drink with you one day at the club. But before we finish it all off, kicking it questions are the final 2 questions I ask every guest I have on the show. Which footballer would you love to kick it with on the football park? Anyone in the world.
Well, from which generation? From any generation?
Any generation. Or if you want to choose from back in the day and then one now, go for that.
Look, I would, let's say so. Back in the day, let's go with. There's 2 people, Maradona.
Yep.
Purely because he seemed very lazy, but his skill levels was just amazing. So I think he's a person that's pretty much won World Cup by himself.
Yep.
So with him, and there's a Serbian player called Dragan Djajic, which played for Red Star Belgrade, which was an amazing player. I've seen a little bits of footage of him. From a community perspective, love to see him. And current day player, I played at the back, and I'd love to be on the field with Vidic in a Masters game. I just think he was the epitome of desperation of a soldier in the defence, and I think he's probably one of the best central defenders of all time, along with Maldini. Yep.
Nice. There we go. And name 2 people, one international and one locally, that you would love to kick it with on a Saturday night and watch some football? Anyone locally?
Locally? So, you know what? I'll say locally. I'll say Alex Popovich. He's a neighbour, and he's just broken into the Adelaide United first team. Has the same surname. Good young kid. I think he's going to do well. So let's say I won't have to drive very far to catch up with him. Youngster. And internationally, I'm a bit biased, but I wouldn't mind hanging out with Mitrovic, the leading goal scorer in the championship with Fulham.
Yep.
I think he's a madman, and I think he'd be a blast.
Sounds like a very good night, and I'm sure you have some chivaps on the barbie or something.
I'm sure. Bit of pork, a bit of lamb, bit of cabbage. Won't go astray.
Nice. Hey, thank you so much for joining me on Kicking It Local. And as you can hear in the background, you're currently cutting the grass. So that's the perks of being out at a local ground.
Yeah, the council's out in force. It's today's a Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday. Yeah. I've lost track of time. They should be mowing the lawn on a Wednesday, but obviously they just do what they like, the council.
Yep, that's it. But that's a perk. You can hear it in the background, and we're recording this live from Frank Mitchell Park. So thank you so much for joining me, Andrew.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming to White City.
That was Andrew Popovich, the president of FK Beograd in the NPL. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow Kicking It Local SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon!